There are times you miss who you used to be. But you have to behave. Just a little.
As most viewers probably know, Season 5 is a reprise of Season 1, as both of those seasons take place in New York City.
Joe's had quite an evolution over our last few seasons, and now we see him back in New York City, but he's at a very different place than he was when we saw him in Season 1 in New York City. Now Joe has plenty of money, he's living this kind of charmed life, and we took the approach of looking at him almost like a Jay Gatsby kind of a character. He is somebody who came from nothing, and in a way, he's almost feeling like he's playing pretend in this world. And so how do you echo that into the clothes? So we looked at a few pieces, bringing back some pants with some pleats, more structure than he had in previous seasons when he was in New York, a bit more of a controlled palette. And then as the season progresses, we see him starting to pick up pieces of what we called old Joe, comfortable things from his old life at the bookstore when he starts to go back down that path.
A lot of the production design elements were meant to be identical in a lot of ways to that which was established in Season 1. And that kind of energy of New York, the vitality, the sense that you're someplace exciting, all of that was meant to be as much part of Season 5 as it was of Season 1. And from a production standpoint, we knew early on that we were going to recreate two of the main sets from Season 1. One was Mooney's rare and used books, and the other one was the basement and the cage below. They were meant to be basically replicas of what we saw in Season 1. That being said, we had a couple of technical concerns. One was that the studio space that we were going to be using for Season 5 was dramatically shorter than the studio space for Season 1, and so some of the scenery didn't fit. So we had to make some adjustments in height, and hopefully we did that without the audience knowing it. But in addition to that, we now fully know as audience members Joe's nature and what he's up to and his MO. And so I felt like the scenery for Season 5 had to reflect, and the way we did that is to create scenery that had a lot of opportunity for some dramatic lighting, heavy backlight, heavy side light, extreme camera angles. All of the walls on all of our scenery where we could do it, we're able to move so we can get as far back and get wide shots and also get shots from the top. Our biggest piece of tech on the set from a production design standpoint was the LED backdrop, which sits outside of Mooney's rare and used front window. And that was employed actually in the original production way back in 2018 and basically functions as a life-size, movable, fully animated backing that when you look out the front doors and the whole front window of Mooney's rare and used, you will see York Avenue at whatever time of day, the scenes are meant to play. And you'll see cars going by and cyclists and pedestrians and the light change and everything like that. And so that to me, even though it's not a new piece of technology, was critical to making that set feel real and feel very, very present. If all of a sudden we wanted to feel like it was magic hour or dusk, we could change the lighting on it. If it was a night shot, we could change to that as well.
We really wanted what he was wearing to echo the feeling of control and being in control of this new world and this new life and this new direction he was taking on a very different path. So we also looked to far more luxury brands than we've seen in past seasons, and also looking for some kind of niche brands that might be not as well known to other people, that felt a little bit more exclusive or aloof, if you will, and a bit more presentational than we'd ever seen him before. We started with a lot of cashmere and a lot of tropical weight wool. It was also cold in New York when we started shooting then, so they worked for our story and our actor comfort. And as we started to transition Joe more back into the bookstore look, the bookstore world, and as his own kind of identity in New York has started to unravel, we went into things that are more like a linen or a poplin, things that would crinkle, reflect texture, show him actually unraveling as well. Kate in particular, this season, we see her far more polished. She's now no longer living in London, working at a gallery. She's running Lockwood Corp. So she needed to really have the air of someone who's in control, a powerful woman, an executive, and also she's a mom. So we needed to see pieces that could transition from her high-powered day job to her reading Henry a book at night, and how those pieces can deconstruct was really fun to play with. We played with a lot of power shoulders. When we left her at the very end of season 4, she had a fabulous, powerful McQueen, I think it was McQueen suit on, with a gray shoulder. And I knew we wanted to go into pieces like that, because then when we see her in the office, we can see a fabulous shoulder, a controlled neckline, even jewelry that was controlled and laid flat rather than whimsical or dangly or delicate, to evoke a very powerful sense of who she was. But then when she comes home, it gives us an opportunity to deconstruct the garment. The jacket comes off, we see a softer silk blouse, she can roll the sleeves, she can play with the buttoning. So a lot of the costumes had to work through many script days as well. So how can you play with those to give it a different story as you're moving through our narrative?
This was important to our producing director, Marcos Siega, as well as the writers. It was important to them that that apartment have a sense of real scale, and almost unlike any New York apartment you've ever seen. And so I think it's through that scale that you get a sense of heightened drama and also heightened tragedy, because that's what's forthcoming. The set itself is not overscale for its reference. Its reference was the Dakota, which is this rather Victorian, old, beautifully proportioned apartment building on the Upper West Side on Central Park West. The rooms that we created were not that much bigger than what's in that apartment. And in some cases, our rooms were actually shorter because those walls actually went up even taller. But I think it's that heightened sense of proportion and scale which gave the story a certain kind of emotional heft and the ability for it to become a thriller. I think production-wise, we were ready to build an apartment of a certain scale. And then when it became clear that our producing director and our writers wanted it to be, even bigger, in fact, twice as big as we thought, that was a challenge, because we didn't have twice as much prep time or twice as much money, although we were able to work with the schedule and work with the producers on budget to be able to get the set that they wanted. But it was an immense challenge because of just the scale of it. People are used to working with a 10-foot ceiling or an 11-foot ceiling, and we're telling them, no, this is actually going to be a 14-foot ceiling, and they're like, So there were all of these production challenges on getting that ready, and also all the way down the line. When you tell the scenics they have to do a faux wood grain finish on the casings or the doors of a set, that's one thing. But when you have to do 16 of them and they're all 12 feet tall, that's another order of magnitude. And even on the decorating end, it's one thing to decorate a living room, a dining room, and a kitchen that are of usual scale, but you get large scale, then all of a sudden you're dealing with twice as much decor and all the bedrooms. It was a big order. It was a big job, and that was certainly the biggest challenge. The bookstore had a very specific golden tones that were in it, as well as some reds. And like I mentioned before, I tried to take those colors and reuse them in Joe's studio for two reasons. One, I wanted that space to feel most like season 1, because that's the space in the story where it harkens back most closely to his life in season 1, where he's a little bit more independent of Kate, and he can write and he can think and he can have fantasies and ultimately wind up, meeting other people. But in any case, the colors from the bookstore really became the palette. Wherever I could reuse, and there were some strong colors in there. It's hard to sort of see, but they were. And so whenever I needed to go back to a stronger red or gold or blue, I just go back to that, and that's how I would pull those colors forward in the design. I think one of the colors in Henry's room, I believe it's like an ambery kind of yellow from the bookstore. So wherever we can do that, it's good to, I feel, as a designer, to sort of economize in that way. And I don't mean like from a financial standpoint. It's like, control the visual palette so that people always understand, oh, that's related in some way.
I wanted them to have something that felt a bit protective still till they got to the cottage by the lake, because that's when I knew we really wanted to strip them down. And our director, Lee Tolan Krieger, had some amazing ideas also about really stripping them down. And he knew he wanted to look at them going barefoot. And at first we thought, oh my gosh, how do we do this? Barefoot in the forest, injury, ticks, all the things. And we worked together to find, we used those kind of like toe running shoes, and I had an amazing woman paint them out. We joked and we called them the troll feet. And they wore those through the whole running through the forest, and you couldn't see them on camera. They were brilliant. I wanted to also make sure we could see all the things that happened to them. I wanted to see the mud start to build up. I wanted to see the blood from the shooting start to build up. I wanted to see the water, the wet. So it was really going through lots of different pieces that could break down to really show the evolution of the story. We start with finding a lot of something. I think for like Joe, we joked, we also didn't know at what point he would transition from the pants into the boxers. So I think we had like 28 pairs of the pants. And then I think we had 36 different boxers of different sizes, because we knew some would also have to be worn over a wetsuit. So we went through, and you just start and you go into the script and you break it down and you see scene by scene your different beats. All right, we know in this scene is when they go in the water. So if we're shooting anything after the water, we actually looked at samples of the water to see like what's in there, what's the dirt look like. We got samples of what the dirt around the cabin was. We wanted to make sure it all matched. And then as far as our blood, we worked with our special effects team and our hair and makeup department to all kind of find the right blood that would match. And we use this kind of movie blood. And a lot of times when it gets wet, it turns pink, which is not what happens with real blood. So we ended up having to paint some things in, paint some mud in. And then our wardrobe truck at the end was just full of boxers and jean shorts and the little white floral tank. A lot of everything. We also had a lot of different stunt players working with us through that. So they also all had their own versions.
Got all of these memories. There's one thing that comes to mind, and that is that every set has an opening, the first time we see it, whether it was the bookstore or the cage or the basement in general, those sets were all open for the first time. And there are a lot of walkthroughs previous, so the directors and the writers and even sometimes cast has a chance to sort of see the space that they're going to have to perform in. But the first time we shot in the basement/cage set for season 5, some of the crew that we had put together, that the producers had put together for this season, were the same crew as shot season 1. And so there was a few of the camera grips, or I think they were camera grips, walked in and they saw the cage and they saw the basement and the environment in general, and we're just like, oh man. It moved them emotionally to walk into that space. And I said, hey, you all right? He says, no, man, it's heavy. It's heavy being in here, right? And I thought, that gave me chills, because I thought, wow, we must have done it if we could evoke an emotional response. And so I felt like, well, I guess we got all of the details right, and the aging right, and the creep value right, because wow, did it have a reaction.
It was really a wonderful experience. And I have to say, it really comes down to the people. It was, soup to nuts, truly wonderful, collaborative people. Our showrunners, Mike and Justin, were really fabulous. Adam Scher, the production designer, our DP, is really soup to nuts. It was really a joy to come into work every day and see Adam's wallpaper samples and hold clothes up to them and see how things would play. I had a truly amazing team also across the board that really every day was a joy, and also our wonderful cast. They were there, they were in for the ride, they were willing to take risks, to try new things, and to really collaborate.
Katie, thank you so much for your time. This was really amazing. I appreciate you taking the time to talk about all the different costumes and going behind the scenes. So
Thanks so much, Michael. Have a great day.
Adam, thank you so much for your time. This was amazing. I love talking all about behind the scenes and how things are created. So thank you for your time. This was really amazing.
My pleasure, and I look forward to doing it again sometime.